Welcome to Drum Talk. Today's drum lesson is going to be on independence. So let's review what we did last week, which was the basic ride pattern. So the basic ride pattern was 1, 2 to 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, I'm feathering the bass drum, light bass drum, 2 and 4 on the hi-hat, and we're accenting the 2 and the 4 on the ride pattern. So, that's the basic pattern. 4 on the bass drum, 2 and 4 on the hi-hat, the spang-a-lang on the cymbal. Today we want to talk about working the snare drum into it. And again, it's going to be about inner dynamic. What's the most loudest in jazz music is going to be your ride cymbal, hi-hat, bass drum very light, feathering the bass drum. And that feathering the bass drum technique is very light. Now, another thing I will say about feathering the bass drum is if you're a rock player and you like to bury the beater, it doesn't sound as good to bury the beater. If you're burying the beater, you're kind of not getting the sound of jazz. So one of the things that I've worked on for my foot is I've worked on taking the beater off the head. Now, I think it's a good practice to take the beater off the head and rock, but I will tell you there are times when you want to lay into it. And if you want to lay into that rock beat, a lot of times I bury the foot. A lot of guys bury the foot, but for overall sound, you should never bury it. If you were to listen to the great session drummer John Robinson, he says he never buries his foot. He's always powerful and pulling it off. I can't get the power I want on a kick drum if I'm not burying it a little bit. But when we're talking about jazz, I'm not going for power. So what I'm going for is light bass drum, which is going to kind of give that bottom boo. It's going to go with that upright bass player and not get in the way. Another thing I do when I'm doing jazz patterns a lot of times, and I've done this in some of the big band stuff, is I'll actually accent the 2 and the 4 on the kick drum with the hi-hat. It's not so much an accent, but it's just kind of letting, that's where I'm hitting it. I used to play with this club date band back in the 80s. And because I did not want to be so heavy on the bass drum, I used to not play the bass drum at all. So all the jazz stuff sounded like this. And I throw the little bass drum in, the little bops, the little bebop bass drum stuff, which is that kind of independence. But when you're playing like a so you're going to do In the Mood. It needs a bottom, so it should be so that swing drumming had that bass drum. So when I didn't want to play that, the bass player said to me, play the 2 and the 4. So one of the things I taught myself was to pull the foot off the bass drum head, feather the bass drum. And for me to do the feathered bass drum technique means I'm playing flat-footed. Usually when I play the rock stuff, I get up on my toes a lot, or the funk. But when I'm playing this stuff, where I want to play lighter, I play flat-footed and I pull the beater off the head. So that's the first other lesson. That's the inner lesson, the inner dynamic lesson. Now the other thing is building independence. So let's talk a little bit about building independence. And the first thing I would say to a guy trying to build independence is first, remember you're thinking the triplets, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. So the first thing I would do to get this hand going is play with my cymbal. Now that starts getting that independence. Now, when I first learned how to play that pattern together, I used to play jazz, traditional grip. The next thing is, and this was something I learned playing blues music, was shuffle, playing the shuffle. And the shuffle comes from the jazz tradition too. So the shuffle beat, for a lot of like really Texas blues or that kind of Chicago blues, a lot of times they'll have the hi-hat, the snare drum doing. You're shuffling on your left hand. So as a way of getting independence, I would practice that. And in the Jim Chapin book, some of the early exercises in the Jim Chapin book is as one of the first ones is that, which is together, and then the second one is playing the shuffle beat on the snare drum. Now by practicing the shuffle beat, I'm playing all the notes you usually play in a lot of your comping, because a lot of the comping is based on that triplet. So one of the common comps a lot of guys trip bop 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 bop. I'm doing all the triplet let 2, 3, 4. So that's another one you can practice. So 3 things you can practice right off the bat is, first is practicing together. Next thing is to practice the shuffle. Now, I'm playing a little fast, I know. But believe it or not, it's easy for me to get in the pocket a little fast just because I've been playing them so long. And it's hard for me to break it down really slow, because if I was doing a really slow shuffle, I probably wouldn't play it exactly. But that's the starting point, is to play. And again, you're accenting the 2 and the 4. So you're accenting the 2 and the 4. Boom, to ba, ba, boom, to ba, da. This one is the triplet, thinking the triplet pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's hard for me to count it, I gotta be honest. It's hard for me to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. And I'm going to show you one more pattern. I don't know if this is going to make it or not, but it's practicing triplets with quarter notes. Now, why am I doing that? Well, first off, not all jazz music is all. It's not always sping, bing, bang, splang, spang-a-lang. Sometimes it's. So. So working on 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet. You're you're working on triplets. Probably all done that pattern, right? Well, now we're just going to take it as a cymbal. Anyhow, I don't know if this lesson is going to help any of you because it may seem really hard. I'm not trying to be hard. I'm just trying to show you some things. And as I get into it, I realize I got to concentrate when I practice this stuff. This is not, it comes out of me when I'm playing the music. I react to the music. But trying to teach it and show it to you and think about what I want to show you, that's the hardest thing. So again, reviewing. Feather the bass drum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Now put the hands together. Then we'll do the shuffle thing. And then we're going to do the triplet thing. So, that's a few patterns to think about. I think I might have taken that into a semi-intermediate level. One other thing, I don't know if this is going to get on, but one of the things I do is I always think of tunes in my head. Like I did last time, I did Fly Me to the Moon. It's good to find songs to play along to. Again, inner dynamics, louder, louder, soft, soft, work on that. And then work on the independence, work with the triplets. And the other thing I want to say is a metronome's helpful in this stuff, but getting too click metronomic will make your jazz sound stiff. So it's more that you kind of play along with some jazz music, but that's where you hear the phrasing. By playing along with jazz music, you start to hear the phrasing. And the whole thing with jazz is the phrasing. Do-da-bop, bop, 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 boo-da-bop. I'm just scatting. I don't know what that was. But that's the kind of stuff you're hearing. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do da bop, 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 da da. Do da da, bop, bop, boo da da. Do da da, bop, bop, da da bop. Do da da. Ba 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 da ba da, da da da, ba 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 da da, da ba 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 da da da. Anyhow, I got off again. Thanks for watching my second lesson of drum talk. I don't know if teaching these drum lessons are going to work, but these jazz lessons are going to work, but I just thought I'd give it a shot anyhow today. Have a great day.